Today, we are going to tackle a challenge that I think we all face. How in the world do you find the right answer when you have all this information, literally everything, right at your fingertips? We're going to build a researcher's roadmap to help turn all that chaos into some real clarity.
You know that feeling, right? You've got this big, important question you want to answer, but when you look at that blank search bar, it just feels like you're standing at the edge of this huge, foggy ocean. Where do you even start? It really helps to think about it like this. All the knowledge in the world isn't some straight road. Nope, it's more like a massive, sprawling maze. It's got dead ends, it's got confusing turns, it's got all these hidden paths. And if you just go running in blindly, well, you're pretty much guaranteed to get lost. And that right there is the core problem, information overload. It's kind of ironic. We have access to literally everything, but having all that access can be completely paralyzing. The real skill these days isn't just about finding information. It's about finding the right information without losing your mind. So, what do smart navigators do when they're faced with a maze? They don't just start guessing, right? No, they find a map. And in the world of research, these maps actually exist. And let me tell you, they are your single most powerful tool for turning all that noise into a clear signal. So, what are these maps? Well, they're called secondary sources. Now, they aren't the treasure itself. The treasure is what we call the primary source, the original study or the raw data. But these secondary sources, they're the detailed guides that show you exactly how to get there. So what exactly is a secondary source? Well, to put it simply, it's any material that pulls together, analyzes, or organizes information from other places. It takes all that raw original stuff, the primary sources, and puts it into a context that's actually useful for you. And what's really cool is just how many different kinds of maps are out there. I mean, we're talking about everything from super specialized periodicals and bibliographies, which are basically just lists of resources, all the way to the encyclopedias and textbooks that we all know. Each one has a slightly different job to do on your journey. All right, so let's take a closer look at a couple of these maps. Think of this as us learning how to read the different symbols and legends that are going to guide your search. Okay, first up, let's talk periodicals. An indexing periodical is kind of like a table of contents. It just tells you what exists. But an abstracting periodical, that is a total game changer. It gives you a short summary, an abstract, so you can decide if an article is actually relevant before you go and track it down. It is a massive, massive time saver. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. See, you've got your basic details, author, title, all that. But right below it, that's the gold. A little paragraph that sums up the key points. In just a few seconds, you know exactly what that article is about. And the sheer scale of these tools is just wow. A single service, something like Chemical Abstracts, covers articles from over 10,000 different journals. Can you even imagine trying to sort through all that without a guide? There's no way. Okay, now here's another incredibly powerful tool. It's called a review of progress, or sometimes just a review article. This is like having an expert sit you down and just tell you everything important that's happened in a super specific field over the last few years. It can literally save you months of work because it gets you up to speed on what's already been figured out. Then, of course, you've got popular periodicals. Think magazines, science websites for a general audience. They're great for getting a quick overview because they're written to be easy to understand, but they usually aren't peer-reviewed, and they often don't include their sources, so they're not the best tool if you're doing deep academic research. And, of course, the good old bibliography. At its heart, it's really just an organized list of documents about a specific topic. You can think of it as the original "you might also like" feature, pointing you toward other stuff that could be relevant. So, right about now, you're probably thinking, okay, this is great, but now I have a brand new problem. How am I supposed to find the right map, right? If there are thousands of these bibliographies and indexes, which one am I supposed to use? Well, that's where the next level of organization comes into play: tertiary sources. If secondary sources are your detailed maps, then you can think of tertiary sources as the atlas or the guidebook that organizes all those maps for you. Now, here's the crucial thing to remember. Tertiary sources don't actually contain the information itself. Their entire job is to point you toward the right secondary sources. They're not the guides, they're the guides to the guides. So your atlas includes things we all know like library catalogs, but also some really cool specialized tools.
For instance, a bibliography of bibliographies, and yes, that's a real thing, is literally a list of other bibliographies. Or a guide to literature will tell you the most important secondary sources for a whole field of study. Okay, let's bring this all together. Let's make a practical roadmap. How do we actually use this knowledge to go from being totally lost in that maze to finding the treasure we're looking for? Here's the path. It's a simple 3-step process. First, you start broad. You use a tertiary source, your atlas, to find the right kind of map. Second, that atlas will point you to a specific secondary source, like that review article we talked about. And third, that map will give you the exact coordinates you need to find the primary source, the treasure itself. And honestly, this is the most important thing to take away from all of this. Good, effective research isn't just some random, chaotic search where you hope for the best. It's a systematic process. It's a structured journey where you move deliberately from the broadest guides all the way down to the most specific piece of information. I absolutely love this quote from our source material. It just perfectly captures the beauty of a really good secondary source. It's not just some dry tool, it's an invitation. It's crafted by an expert to guide you into a new world of knowledge. So there you have it, the roadmap to get you from confusion to clarity. It's all about knowing the difference between your atlas, your map, and your treasure. So the only real question left is, now that you have the roadmap, what will you explore?